over the years, football has been dominated as a men's sport. In late 80s, early 90s, the shorts were this big. And you're saying in the 2000s when we were involved, Desres, we were then this big. So
the shirts sometimes tend to look similarly. Is that a coincidence?
Similarities into who has the green stripes and who has the black stripe is made with your partner in-house. As long as you're talented, you deserve to be sponsored. We managed to get players like Siyabonga Mabena at Sundown. We got your Relebohile Mfukeng at OP. This particular boot, the Predator, has shedded over 60 grams out of what its original weight has been.
Wow.
In the past, during your Beckham, your Zidane space, it was a midfield kind of a boot.
That's how I was introduced to it.
We hope that our sponsored guys will be in that AFCON team, obviously going to Morocco. So
in the Champions League,
and
two of your clubs are still in that space as well.
Definitely.
Now, my next guest, you probably see him a lot during the off season when kits are being launched, players are off to tournaments, talking about the Euros, Africa Cup of Nations. But I promise you, there's a lot more to the man. I'm talking about Adidas sports marketing from a football point of view. Bob Maphosa, he now joins me for the full hour. Brabi, thanks for joining us, and I see you brought some gifts here. Do we get to keep them?
No, thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
Let's get into it. As I was saying in my intro, a lot of people probably see you mostly when the fan frenzy around kit launches, that's a big hype ahead of a new football season, so to speak. I mean, even when athletes are probably going to, other competitions, or even recently with the Olympics, the likes of Akani Simbine and all of them when they were heading out to Paris. But let's start with your role specifically out at Adidas. What is it that you've been doing there for so many years and helped this brand build its reputation?
Yeah, I don't know why I come out during the off season. I think I prefer being behind the scenes and obviously supporting and making sure that the athletes come out and shine. But yeah, I think obviously my role is looking after our partners and our sponsored athletes, as well as scouting obviously those ambassadors that come into from an individual sponsorship kind of scenario. So I look out, I follow the game, and obviously look at the personalities that we can work with in terms of exposing our brand, as well as assisting in with equipment that will enable them to stay at their best.
That's in some might say you take the role of a scout essentially, because you have to identify what one would call some key performance indicators in terms of not only enhancing your brand, but choosing specific athletes or clubs, partners that can align with your vision as Adidas.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would say, obviously, if you take it into the number of pro players that we get to watch on week in, week out, kind of during the PSL season, our brand budgets alignment don't allow us to sign each and every one of those guys. So you are given a target, like for instance, get 20 obviously individual sponsorships out of, if we say each team have 16 players, you're looking at like 176 players that will be playing week in, week out. But I need to select only 20 that I work with. So I would say in that form, then there is a scouting element that needs to be, so that you know that socially the person is going to represent your brand in the right way. And also, obviously, from a brand point of view, we are a performance brand. So performance stays key to what the scouting scenario needs to be, as well as obviously trying to expose our products that are provided or that are prepared with scientific advantages from a technology point of view to kind of give those athletes so that they maintain their top in terms of performances.
Then take me into your day-to-day, so to speak, if especially maybe ahead of a big meeting with a club, whether it's locally or abroad, what would that look like in terms of preparation? We spoke about aligning. We spoke about the brand's vision. What would be those things that indicate that you know that would necessitate for you to have that meeting? Do you have a list of things that you tick off first before you identify and say, okay, let's approach an Orlando Pirates, for instance, for a deal? And by the way, that relationship, I think we were talking just before we went on camera, what, 3 decades now or more? Yeah.
Unbroken.
Unbroken.
Yes,
Keyword, unbroken.
yes.
Not 10 years more now, 5 years break.
No.
That's impressive, baby.
Yeah, I think obviously for us, I think from a brand point of view, what we look at is whoever you're going to partner with, how will they amplify your space? And I think for us, obviously, for a brand, like if we had to put a scenario with our current deal with OP, there will be obviously brand strategies that you need to pull them into. So we know that, listen, come FW20, like come the year 2025, what are your key areas that we as a brand will be pushing through, and how do we pull in our partners from a team perspective, from individuals that will then speak to those products that we want to kind of obviously take out. So in that situation, you need to obviously make sure that for amplification of what we want to do as part of our strategy, you rope in, because we do have our rights packages within the contracts. So part of my job is to look into how we activate or how we pull through our rights in within that to make sure that it is a full kind of relationship that benefits us as well as the club.
And how do you, I mean, speaking of the Buccaneers, 30 years unbroken, how do you maintain? Because, I mean, over the years, with their success, one of the, a heritage club, a legacy club, one would even go that far to call them. How have you managed to make sure that you maintain that relationship? Because I'm sure they've had other sponsors knocking on their doors. You just have to look at the list of clubs all around the world and even here at home, how a lot of them have moved back and forth between sponsorships. But it's been important that you've been able to maintain that relationship. What gives you the edge?
Yeah, I think for us, it's really a unique kind of relationship where both partners in this setup, I think there is, I would say the relationship just syncs very well with each other from a brand point of view. But again, over the years, I know that probably other brands are also looking and learning from what we do, from how we activate them as a partner. It also will make some, I think, obviously opposition brands may be jealous that they will want to come into that space. But within us, I think as a brand, we are experienced. We really try and make sure that from a servicing part, we excel in it so that we don't leave any loopholes for any opposition to come in and kind of get a way to kind of come in. But I think it has been a honest relationship between two willing partners that know how to look at newness and growth in the relationship, because that is what each partner will be wanting to kind of see, to say, what growth is this partner kind of giving us? And I think over the years, I know that I'm not only speaking to OP fans, but from a football perspective, I think a lot of the fans look out there. I've had so many congratulatory messages coming from opposition teams when we go out and launch our jerseys, when we go in with, and I think when OP does their field kind of testing at like in some of the matches, and with how that experience becomes for those watching at home and those that are at the stadium, they really kind of evoke that kind of a perfect relation setup, which I think is the main aim. And for us, it amplifies and really gets our brand to the mouths of the football fans.
Why is it so important for you guys to also do a proper launch? Instead of a press release, send out a few shirts. But what I've observed from Adi, especially since in my time as a journalist, I've always seen that there's consistency in making sure that there's some sort of activations, inviting the media for a kickabout, whatever the case may be, a nice jol out in Sentin or whatever, including designers. there's a lot of thought that seems to have gone into it. What motivates that instead of just saying the season is starting, here's the kit, launch it on social media, and then people can go out and buy it at Adi stores nationwide?
Yeah, really. I think for me, it's really I think it becomes a significant moment to launch the season. And I think every fan at that particular time, they are looking to see what their club's regalia will be going into the new season. And yeah, I've had so many of those people saying, listen, just put an OP jersey on the shelf, everyone will pick it up. But for us, I
Because
think
it's OP after all, it almost feels like you don't need to sell it, but you still go the
yeah,
extra mile.
no, but no, definitely. I think from a marketing point of view, you really need to create that wave that, listen, we here now, make it be felt. Let the fans be proud. Let the players themselves, because I think the first comment really goes when you go into that photo shoot with the players and say, guys, how do you see it? How is it going to kind of come out? And if you get the nod from the person that's going to be using it on field, it is kind of a perfect fit when you take it out to the fans that you need them to be proud and back their team with the colors that are as the 12th man.
I'm going to go global in a bit, but I'm just interested to know, given your reputation, the long-standing relationship with OP, why are we not seeing Adi also partner with more local clubs? There's a lot of other partnerships happening on the side with athletes, with footballers or runners or whatever the case may be. But perhaps maybe people are saying we want to see it. If I support a different team, I'm saying I would love to have that brand sponsoring my team. How does that work? Or is it in terms of having that partnership with Adi, you just locked in there and then you go global or you go continental? How does it work?
Yeah, obviously, I think in the EPL, if you look at now how many teams we have in there, it really says how much Adidas has come into the space. And a lot of people do ask such questions about our local league and say, listen, where are you at? But for us, it really becomes a year-on-year investment basing on what budgets are available in your market. Because obviously, from a South African market, we work as an emerging market with our head offices being in Dubai. So within that setup is which clubs will you have a budget to kind of obviously pick in. I think 2 years ago we picked up Al Ahly.
Yes.
So in Africa we've got 2 teams now that are obviously Adidas sponsored, and I think there will be more that will want to come into the space. But surely you need to speak with what you have in your pocket. If you don't have budgets to really take and make a good job of it, or rather kind of wait until the right moment comes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was gonna go global now. You mentioned the Egyptian giants as well. A little bit about that partnership as well. What then made you branch out to then look into the continent and not just go for any club? You go for the record holders in terms of winning the Champions League.
Yeah, no, I think from us, obviously, Adidas has a reputation. Adidas as a brand in football is a biggie. So anyone that partners up with us, it's not only probably an Adidas going into, but it's meant making sure that that partnership really kind of explodes and engulfs more of the continent. So from the profile of the actually profile of the OP and how it has kind of gone through, I think for us, we have an OP product sitting as far out as Russia,
Wow.
as far out as China, because of the impact that the OP brand has had over the years with the club. So it's that space that when we look at Egypt as well and how the Al Ahly guys have kind of done it, we also look at probably how we would as a brand benefit from a positive ROI in kind of getting such, and the fans that will kind of come behind it. So it's really a calculated move on who you get into, that you look at your investment, look at what you probably will gain from it and how best you will activate, because it's pointless having a contract sitting out there, but you're not fully kind of utilizing your rights back into that space. So it is something that we look very much into. As I said, as a brand, we experienced. So we have seen how the European guys will kind of do it and we take best practices from it and we take it to each and every market that we come out and work with.
The does the success of a club determine the wave in terms of maybe, I don't know, how the product does, whether it's shirt sales or boots or whatever product that you are amplifying with the particular partner that you have at the time? Because you mentioned the Egyptian giants have been doing well for so many years, so it's almost an easy sell. You mentioned the last 3 seasons, ever since the Spanish guitar arrived at Orlando Pirates. You can see it with the fans showing up at the stadiums. It's not so difficult to sell out tickets. Does it translate the same in terms of what Adidas, the impact that they want when the club is doing well, winning trophies, having players in the national team? How do you measure that wave? What's your barometer from an Adidas point of view?
Yeah, you might see me smiling, but I do think that probably you guys within the journalism area will maybe take something out and look into it as to does success really bring profitability to a club?
Yeah.
Because I think I've seen scenarios that we look into, and I think for me, I will concur with what you're saying. In a club that has already got a nice base of fans, if they are successful on the pitch, it's a no-brainer. It kind of relates, and you can see it in how everyone wants to associate. But there are clubs that I've seen that marries or gives brands like ours credibility on field. That's success on field. But you look at and you see them as probably the best clubs for future investment, which means they are not raking it right now when they are busy on the Excel and on the app. But there is future in that, in the upcoming fans that are growing up seeing them succeed. Probably give them another 2 or 3 years, they will carry all those fans behind them and be a club to be reckoned with from a fan point of view. But for your Al Ahly's, your OP, and some clubs that already have got the backing of the fan or the 12 men behind them, you just need to work the success and you.
I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit. I don't know if this is your department or not, but are you able to then measure what in terms of maybe shirt sales? Those statistics. It's statistics that we never really see in an African market, but we probably see when we talk about legacy clubs. Maybe they are able to then tell us the numbers, or is it a bit more nuanced when it comes to the African continent to sort of know exactly how to measure that? I'm trying to get it, not necessarily the figures per se, but I'm wondering whether it's something that you look at, that if we are going to partner with you for 3 decades, we need to look at how we're going to definitely sell the shirts. We, like you mentioned, all around the world, Russia, whichever place where an OP shirt will land, or even Ali as well, because they're a huge club. They're massive. I mean, players, they don't hardly ever walk around shopping centers because of the culture, the support-based culture in Egypt.
Yeah, I think obviously from a shirt sales point of view, I think there is that link between the club performance versus what the club jerseys will kind of sell like. But for us, we don't take it to the market because it's been launched. We prepare for a launch. So within that, it means that our orders should already be captured before we come out and launch it.
Makes sense.
So as part of our pack to those that are investing towards getting these kind of products from us, we will then do activations. We'll take these players out for autograph signing at their doors. We'll kind of take the players out so that we drive feet into their stores so that the sell-through of the product is. So hence I was saying, if the club is performing well, it's a no-brainer. People want to be in that space. But again, even if it's not that successful season, people still want to relate, see these players and take photos and kind of post it digitally and so on. So that support that will take these players into your door means that we are obviously trying to push the numbers. And yes, the numbers vary from one year to the other based on the confidence of the buyers, because we don't sell it ourselves. We rely on other partners that are obviously from a retail space in terms of distribution areas to kind of pick it up and take it. But I think we have had it better with confidence, I think, from the season that was, and basing on the partner that you support. You normally have probably a base where you take it through and see how best it goes. So yeah, it kind of fluctuates. And I think just looking at it from a football space, the success of the bigger nations is based on the jersey. But we don't only do the jersey now. We've got training kit that gets into. You've got some polos that people wear to work and stuff. So
I've seen OP coming out with different swag for most of their matches. Today it's this type of attire. Tomorrow it's a different one. So that's another thing that
Yes, so the range has kind of obviously been expanded in that. And I think it all speaks to the dominancy of the brand versus how the fans will want to look. So yes, jerseys are one of the first to look into for the success of the club, but we're also picking some numbers in this extended range.
How much of a growth and a change you've seen in that 30 years?
No, definitely. I think for us there is growth, and I think the main one is I think it will be nice maybe next time you have somebody from the club side of it sitting on this chair to say, how is that pull from a fan base?
Yeah.
I think the generations that know OP for the history and the current generation that are taking it up and kind of coming through, how is that newness coming into it and to the pot? Because that is what speaks of these big clubs, to say how do they maintain and on getting new supporters into the ranks so that we continue to have the fan base that there is.
And I've had this burning question as well. I said touchline during the matches for SABC Sport, and I've observed fans asking the players for the shirts, but I've always seen that the players are always say, I can't give you the shirt, and I've not seen it happen too many times. But overseas, if you watch a few games, you'll see the players take off the shirts, go to the fans and throw it into the stands. But I don't see that in the South African market. Is it a specific, are there specific reasons for that? Why the shirts can't be given away? Is it in terms of, what's the word I'm looking for? In terms of the number of shirts that are produced on a season basis? And you were talking about budgets, and that could that be the case? Maybe if you can explain why most of the time the players, you don't see them going to the stands and giving the shirts away for any particular game.
Yeah, no, I don't know whether I doubt that call will be coming from the technical sponsor saying give away your shirts. It should really be, I think, part of the club's management system, because I think between us and the club, we deal with numbers. We know how many games will be played. We know how many shirts need to be produced and get those kind of into the space. And the management of that product, once it hits the club side of things, then moves into a club's kind of management structure, how they deal with it. So, for instance, if you are asked to give out or to get your shirt quarterly, surely won't give it away in the first game. You'll keep it up until it becomes yours for you to be able to kind of hand it over. But at this moment, I wouldn't say I know what that policy is from a club side of things. All I know is I've never seen an OP player go into field without a jersey. We will have fully supplied what our contractual obligation is.
Yeah, and those and people wonder if sometimes players get into a tug of war, and a player pulls a shirt and it drips, but immediately there's is it part of your scope as well to make sure that for each particular game? So I'm sure you must mass produce then, because incidents can happen during a match where a player tears a jersey and has to get a replacement, or in some instances you might find that the player continues, doesn't feel like it bothers them. But I suppose those are things that are taken into account throughout the course of a season, where if you are an Al Ahly or Orlando Pirates, on average, you probably, if you do well in every competition, we're talking about 30 Betway Premiership matches. Then you've got the cup competitions, you've got continental tournaments as well. You could be playing 50 plus matches.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think obviously there are policies that govern the games as well. I think hygiene is part of it as well, that once you bleed onto that jersey, you can continue with it within that space. As experienced as we are, and obviously wanting to live within that kind of guideline that they produce, you will not go into a game with only one shirt. There needs to be a spare shirt that kind of sits behind and kind of waits to that. In some instances, some players sweat, and that tells you that at halftime they change into a new shirt. So it's all those kind of scenarios that the guys behind the scenes will know and work towards to have that full view, because in a live game situation, you want to be presented the best way possible. So it's that setup that obviously we plan towards, and we continue updating whatever the rules of the game kind of allow us to, and we keep our partners in a space that we do not kind of compromise how we show out to the world.
Absolutely, that's important. You speak of planning ahead. Let's now move the conversation to talking about athletes, especially from a football point of view. How do you go about then sort of nailing down these endorsements where you say, what qualifies a player in your eyes, in your books, when you are doing your evaluations, to say, okay, that's the player we want to represent the brand. Hopefully you are not biased to just OP and Al Ahly on the continent, and you are just looking across the league as well in terms of identifying the best young talent. Let's touch a little bit on that, Prabi.
Yes, I think for me, definitely, anything behind, I think the first thing that comes into will be talent. Yes, as brands, we then will have guidelines, positional guidelines, edge scenarios where you can, because you don't want to sign somebody at the end of his career. You don't have enough time to amplify the relationship and really kind of get him out. We also would look at current step versus the next generation athletes and see who will take whose space when his kind of time ends. But within that, I think for me, talent or performance leads it. Your social well-being, how you carry yourself in and off the field. Nowadays, there is the digital element to it that we need to see and kind of follow you through, so that those fans that kind of could see a lot of what we do from that space. And yeah, I think those are really the major ones that we will, and the rest of it will obviously be us saying to you, listen, this season's campaign is around the Predator. Who of our players are using that boot? So it's their time to shine, and we get to amplify. And yeah, as we change along to the other silos as well, we will kind of be moving in that. But the major one, I think, for us, we are a performance brand. We would want you on field, shoulders above the rest within the team space. And yeah, I know that players get maybe intimidated when they are not playing there on the stands, and then they feel like you, the coach, you will come hard on them. But we understand that you will not be on the setup as long as we know that we believe in you. Your talent that you have, the possibilities of kind of getting through. I think a lot of us, we judged with the national team a footprint. When I meet my colleagues from other countries, they don't ask me how many players do you have at the PSL that are wearing the thing. How many players do you have in your national team?
Yes, that's important.
That's the setup that we kind of obviously look at, that kind of a high in terms of performance that will lead you to be on a national spot.
Maybe let's zoom in on some of the talent that you've recently signed. Obviously, you mentioned some of the young players. Off the top of your head, some recent deals that you've done to get these players on board? What are those some of the things that you were looking at as well?
Yeah, no, I think for me, just being in this game for this long, 2023 was a highlight in my space on how I view football locally and stuff. I saw enough young talent making the first team appearances, I don't think, the team space. There have been a lot of recycling. Player X is on at Maritzburg. He's now at Pirates, or he's now at Supersport. Then he moves out, but it's the same players that you saw kind of coming through. But for me, definitely how I've seen, I think 2023 was one of a highlight. And within that, we managed to get players like Siyabonga Mabena at Sundowns.
Nice.
We got your Relebohile Mofokeng at OP. We got your Thabiso Sasani within the OP space. And obviously there are some other youngsters that we are working with, although we are not at that space to kind of obviously be on a contractual term. But a lot of the boys that we have seen, I think we have got great guys. I think Kutlwano out at Sundowns as well. He's shown so much setup. I think there was Chandre that kind of went through on the space. I think for me, that's where, when I'm counting talent, I'll be looking at such kind of young stars that are coming in and making themselves known that, listen, we're here to kind of compete and make it. So it's within that space that we as brands, I think, we all watch the same game and we target the same one. Is how quick you can get to that space to kind of get these kind of guys within your space. But we never look away from talent. I think as long as you're talented, you deserve to be sponsored. And it's that setup that we're saying, from a next generation play, if you invest in such talent, you probably will still have be relevant in the seasons to come.
Born in an island, there's a silo thinking you can get agreements with clubs, you can get agreements with athletes as well, especially when they are performing, especially when they are young, breaking into the national team, whether junior or senior setup as well. I think I asked this question earlier about a different topic, but what then gives you the edge? How do you then think out of the box?
Yeah, no, listen, it's a definitely, I think for me, we obviously have people that look after the interests of these players. And I don't think that them and us share the same kind of probably strategy or KPIs within who you get into. I think for me, I get given a budget to work within.
Bugay.
for the year.
Yeah.
And I think from an agent's perspective, they just look at their players getting the money with no understanding as to how we get into the kind of offers that we get through and kind of set up. But within that space, I think it's really speaks to if the player is within kind of offers that we get through and kind of set up. But within that space, I think it's really speaks to if the player is within the age group that you're targeting, it is in the position that you as a brand are focusing on, as well as his dominancy on the field of play as you kind of go ahead. And you will have obviously your normals, which is your VIKs and probably your retainers for the year. But there is also tournament space that becomes bonuses. If you get into an Olympic team, go participate, there is over and above what you do within your PSL and your kind of setup. If you go into a national space, you also get remunerated for performing in that kind of space. So I would say, as brands, that's where we differ. That you can see a Club World Cup as a major achievement from your end, and one sees it as, yeah, it is an international tournament, but what does it do for my market? And if you think that it's not, then your offering towards such will be lower than an AFCON, for instance, lower than for an under 20 World Cup or kind of setup. So it's within that maybe other brands just target the big ones, Olympic, AFCON, World Cup, but forget about this under 17 junior space. And if your player is within the age group, can kind of benefit.
Huge opportunity.
So definitely from a management and agent space, I think that's what will get you over the other if one doesn't view one of as, and then that's where the differences will kind of come through. But for me, I've always said some brands carry value. When you partner with an Adidas and you form part of an Adidas portfolio, is it the same as if you are with brand X within that setup? So that growth as well on how you value your brand, two brands matching and coming out for the sport that you're involved with, I think it also carries value. So once you get an approach from Adi versus what you are at or these other kind of guys, then it makes you decide who you want to be with. And a relationship can always grow. You have got an entry point and you've got probably an exit space. So how do we grow from where we are now and see the potential to elevate you? And we've had instances where some of our athletes have moved abroad. And because of us being a global partner, you get out to your friends, they say, listen, cancel your South African deal, get another youngsters. Nice. We will take this player up from here. So it's that kind of space.
So it doesn't end here at home.
It doesn't end here. As you can kind of continue going up with your within your space, you carry an opportunity to kind of get it out to the nation that you kind of play in. And we will always support you at home because we would want to still own you.
Yeah.
Kind of space. But when you're out there, then I think the euro-dollar space gets into you and money can be made.
Do you tailor make products for specific athletes? I mean, obviously, you just launched a boot recently. What goes into the thinking behind such things? Because some players prefer, I mean, Sesane, for instance, might want a certain type of boot. A relay might want a certain type of boot. Does that, maybe take us into your confidence into those discussions, or it's a blanket approach for all players to say, this is what we've launched and you are going to wear it?
Not, but it's an interesting one as well that, listen, I've got 3 silos in within. I've got the Predator, the F50 and the Copper. I obviously wouldn't want all my 20 athletes sitting in one. Because I want the other ones to also get the day of light and the exposure that comes with it. However, we want the athlete to be at his best comfortable space. So you as an athlete, you tell us what silo you want to play in, and then we kind of set up. We have had people that we have approached to get out of a silo because we think that they better fit this other silo. Yes. But you need to be comfortable. You will get it, test it, and agree. We, technology-wise, always change. I think from a weighting perspective, every athlete was going for the lightest, which is the F50. But this particular boot, the Predator, has set it over 60 grams out of what its original weight has been.
Wow.
It's
super light.
It's sitting under 200 now with the new last and a kind of something. And it's now also spoken to as a goal-scoring boot. So it's kind of Predator for goals. That's the drive that we're kind of taking through. Because in the past, during your Beckham, your Zidane space, it was more of a touch kind of ball, swerve, control, and kind of obviously shooting. So it was a midfield kind of a boot that kind of.
Yes, that's how I've always. That's how I was introduced to it. It was more for the workhorse.
Definitely, it has changed now. That's why we are no longer prescriptive on what position you play, but it's what you have in your feet. As long as you're comfortable with it, you can kind of obviously go through. So there has been technology advancements in that, and that is probably one thing that we pride ourselves with, that each time we highlight this particular silo we have, it's the upper, the mesh and kind of, or the weight and kind of the bottom frame kind of obviously, and the benefits that it will work for a player or an individual. So in that space, no, we don't really prescribe what you play in, but we work with our athletes we still want you to excel and be at top of your game. So no excuses will be given on product.
Makes sense. There's a guy who's banging in the goals there at OP. Maybe he might, he scored a hat trick recently, so maybe he might want to switch to this the new baby in due time. But let's talk about now.
I hope his friend is listening.
Let's talk now about, obviously, there's a lot happening this year. From a football point of view. And, you know, I saw recently some products that were being launched, whether on the global space or even from a South African point of view. There's going to be the Africa Cup of Nations. It's the big one, 2026 World Cup next year. And in between, obviously, there's a lot of other things happening. Club World Cup, this and that. What does Adidas have in store for us?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think from an Adidas point of view, we are a global brand, and where there are opportunities to amplify our brand, we have been obviously there. We are part of the Euros, hence the ball sitting here for the Women's Euros this year. And I think there is obviously the Club World Cup, and towards the end of the year, there is the AFCON as well. So we, from a player perspective, are looking to see how our nations that are going to be obviously going there, how we'll be represented. And definitely as part of our current deals that we have with athletes, those tournaments or those kind of events are covered in. And it's very much that AFCON December in 2026 World Cup space. So it's a thing that we definitely plan and work towards. And we do know that I think we just launched the women away jerseys now for a Eurospace so that the fans can start obviously preparing for that. So from a brand point of view, we stay close to such events and really make it that we represent the fans and probably bring product that assist in fan wear and to get people behind their teams.
And in terms of the relationships with these national teams, with these clubs, do they ever sort of like sit in these meetings when you know, come up with designs and come up with ways to amplify, you know, their participation at a particular tournament? Or, you know, for instance, I mean, obviously you mentioned the women's team as well. The way you go about designing a particular product as to opposed to maybe a men's design as well, going into a different competition. I don't know whether that makes sense in terms of how much alignment and communication happens between either the national team athletes at a club level as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. There is a lot of discussions that happen behind the scenes. I think for me, if you had a look at these 6 teams that we partner with going into the Euros, those jersey designs are reflective of the countries that they come from. So our designers really make it a point to visit such countries and really look at the cultural, the kind of probably geographical sites and stuff that they need to, so that everyone that gets it is proud to don one and represent their kind of obviously nationality and kind of including the players that will be on field. But with that as well, I think from a business point of view, over the years, football has been dominated as a men's sport. I think for inclusivity and such, we have explored the areas of it must be a family sport. So you now will have a jersey that comes out in a men's cut, women's cut, and kids. So to be all inclusive, that you kind of make sure that no one is missed from a support kind of element. And actually, I think it opens up from our offering as well, that we are bound to probably sell at different areas now rather than getting this baggy or long.
Yeah, that's important. It's funny you say that. I think a few months ago, Coach Desiree was sharing her story when she started playing for Banyana Banyana. And I think Adi was still, Adidas was still the sponsors at the time. And where they, you know, it was a matter of trying to figure out their cuts. So they ended up taking the kids from the men's, and they were wearing, and you used to see it all the time where Banyana were playing with these baggy shorts and tops as well. But things have changed. Like there's a lot of sort of evolvement that's happened in not just in the technology space as well, but in what you do on a day-to-day basis, Bobby.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think there is change, and I'm just looking at that as well, kind of reflecting back. I'm not quite sure because the late 80s, early 90s, the shorts were this big. And you're saying in the 2000s when we involved Desres, we were then this big. So, but I think we have kind of obviously managed to kind of hit the right sizing now. We have got these elements, and obviously want to hero everyone's gender kind of setup without bias. If you want the women's cut, it's made available. And for the men's size as well, you need that kind of obviously made through. So I think that's well represented in the current market space.
Yeah, and in terms of just wrapping up, we were talking about things that upcoming. Any other product launches that we should maybe anticipate as well from Adidas space and point of view?
Yeah, no, I think for us, obviously, from a boot point of view, we basically do a quarterly kind of update within that. So yes, we are here now, but as we go through, and we obviously will be looking at the new seasons as well from global kind of A club space, as long as locally when the new season kind of come in, we will be in that space to start doing those discussions and divert how we are going to be going to war. But within now, I think is concentrating on the current game and really looking at, I think the Nedbank Cup is in. We still have our partners in competition strong, so we're waiting to see where it ends, as well as it's an interesting one, obviously, in the league setup. But it's also great to have your partners within that space.
And the Champions League. And two of your clubs are still in that space as well.
Definitely. I think for us, it's that space that we are thinking that obviously from a 2025 year for both our partners, clubs and athletes, we hope that our sponsored guys will be in that AFCON team, obviously going to Morocco. So it's definitely something that we're looking forward to, and we are well behind them and will give full support.
What would a successful year look like from a brand point of view in terms of everything that you've sort of put your hard work into?
Yeah, listen, I think for me, obviously not putting pressure into my partner. I think if I had to be in their space when they lift that league championship, it would be something that would say it's massive for us as a brand. But within that space as well, wherever we are with the current, I think, show of things within the league, I think everyone is excited and everyone is seeing how well they are doing, and we hope that it long continues. And we are definitely behind that kind of a setup. But with that space as well, obviously from a global space, obviously with the Euros coming in, we've got 6 countries in there representing and flying our flag.
Yeah.
We're also looking at that. That global success keeps our brand in the mouths of the football fans or sport people. So we will want that success as well to kind of trickle into our markets and make sure that we are obviously successful in that.
Speaking of these tournaments that are also coming up at times, and some people might have observed this maybe at a club level as well. The shirts sometimes tend to look similarly. Is that a coincidence? Because people say, but this shirt the Bayern shirt looks like the Pirates shirt, or the Pirates shirt looks like the other national team that's sponsored by Adidas. What goes into that thinking? Is it purely a coincidence, or there's maybe what's visible to the naked eye is we can't necessarily tell a difference because we are not necessarily skilled in picking up the differences between the different shirts as well.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think for us, obviously, being a big brand as we are and having so many partners, it's bound to happen that there are similarities. However, the discussion around a shirt production is never based on a transparent all-in-one kind of house space. So you might have the same template, but you need to own your space and curate your one to speak to you and your fans. So within that is the same template, yes, could kind of happen, but the similarities into who has the green stripes and who has the black stripe is made with your partner in-house. So we will tell you that, listen, this is our Euro approach at a national team space. Do you want this at a club level? Club will hit our markets in July, and Euro we're launching now.
Yeah.
So somebody is already leading the reveal of the template.
Yes.
So for people that are obviously judging on it, it's difficult for us to then say, because Switzerland is in it and that year, or Spain is in it, then OP don't take that kind of setup, even if they want to be in the same template. But it takes them and really engulfs them into a one brand anthem that says, these are Adidas teams, and be proud of who you are. Because in the past, we would have had a thing that, don't worry, it's a European template, it will never hit Africa. And for now, as long as you are part of this Adidas setup, there is no segmentation that says you are in this part of the world, you don't deserve the best. It will be the same kind of product, but curated to your liking, because you've got to sign on it for approval.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely makes sense, Brabi. Any parting shots? I think, it's crazy. An hour flies by pretty quickly, but anything else that I might have missed? I try to cover as much as I can in terms of the scope of our discussion about going behind the boot, as it were, with Adidas.
No, definitely. I think for me, it's just definitely, I would say, I'm thanking you for the opportunity. I never thought this was my platform. I obviously prefer to be behind the scenes and let the athletes
now
kind
you're
of
behind
shine.
the boot, Brabi.
But I'm behind the boot, as you say. And definitely, I think, as you say, it's also kind of obviously a learning kind of space that people, when they see us, they must never see us as gatekeepers. We are here to kind of pull through brand strategies and kind of things like that. And I think from a relationship point of view, we have relationships with club owners, relationships with players, with agents. And at times you do feel that people feel that we make these brands as part of our home and not understanding that we have got a job to perform. So all of us are there to perform a job. And if it wasn't that you are pulling through what you are expected to do as an individual, you obviously will not be where you are. So it's that space that we appreciate the new talent obviously coming through, and the conversations will still be held in that space. And we continue looking for ambassadors to kind of come through and partners as we push through in the football space.
Well said, Brabi. That's we've literally gone behind the boot with this episode. And again, thanks for your time. I think let's leave it there. As I said, we've gone behind the scenes with Bob Maphosa, and I told you there's more to the man than just what you see during the off season, and when you do see him get some FaceTime on screen. That's how we finish it off here behind the boot with Super Geno.